Dust to Dust is a competitive deck building game where all players start with the same 10 cards, 8 energy cells and 2 fusion fragments, which are worth victory points. In early turns, you'll draw a hand of 5 cards, count your energy, and then recruit allies to add to your deck from the pool of 10 on Earth. You can also proactively remove cards from your deck by dusting them, placing them on the dust playmat at the center of the table. Once you have a few allies, you'll start to play attacks, charge shields, and chain allies together, allowing you to choose and acquire a relic for 8 energy cells. Each relic makes you dust a card from your starting hand, but comes with a persistent, game-changing effect. The first player to get 3 relics triggers the final round, allowing all other players one more turn to make a last-ditch bid for victory. Then, the player with the most victory points has saved their island and won the game.
What's going on, YouTube? Earth Power here, back with CVH.
How's it going, everybody?
And Gorby.
Hello, hello.
And we are here to bring you the Relics, the final card group in our little Dust to Dust video review of the factions and cards of this game. So I think a good place to start here is that just kind of going over what these cards are and how they function in the game. Relics are your win pieces. These are the cards that you want to be collecting as you play the game. This is what you're building energy for, so that you can grab 3 of them to trigger the end of a game and then cycle the players through their last turn and then count victory points. Some keynotes to mention before we get into all of the cards is that all relics give you 4 victory points each. So once you have one, it's yours. There's really no way for an opponent to interact with your relic in terms of discarding it, dusting it, anything of that nature. So once you have one, it's yours. Every game, there's 2 piles that are randomly shuffled and flip face up, so that you have an option of one or the other relic to grab when you have the option to get one. And then every relic, once you own it, makes you dust a card from your hand at the start of your turn. So I think those are all the big key pieces, and I know I just kind of briefed over them, and we'll kind of get into how they interact and how they play into those, I guess, rules as we get more into the individual cards. But Christian, Gorby, before we start going over any of these, your thoughts on anything that we need to mention before we get going?
Yeah, you hit it. They're really, really powerful, can't be bought early, but they are usually game defining and strategy defining. As you mentioned, so in the last review, we talked about the fact that if your opponent attacks you below 3 cards in your hand, you do draw back up to 3. But if you have a relic or 2 relics, you'll still be dusting a card from 3 at the start of your turn. So if you have a lot of relics and you're getting attacked a lot, you could potentially start the turn with 1 or 2 cards in your hand. It's possible.
Yeah.
So, Gorby, anything before we get going?
No, I think you nailed it. 8 cost, 4 victory points, dust a card every turn. The effects do stack. That's worth noting, I think. In early iterations of the game, it used to be like whatever relic you had on top of your sort of like relic pile, that was the effect that you got. But you get both static effects from each relic. And they're pretty powerful effects too. So definitely cards worth, gunning hard for, because, that's the name of the game, right?
Yeah. And I think there's a few things to mention at the end, but I will touch on them here. Obviously, you said stacking effects. So, the idea is that when you have 2 relics, you guys are all still playing the game. But when the last player draws his 3rd, he's never going to be able to use that. So getting that 3rd relic is really just a way to just trigger the end game. You're never going to really use its effect. So I don't know how important that is to maybe keep another opponent off of it, since they will also be on their last turn when they go to grab other relics. But just something interesting to note there. So,
Absolutely.
as we let's jump in. So we will start with the chronograph. We are going in alphabetical order for the relics as they stand. So there are 10 of them, And the first one we're going to speak about is the chronograph. So all the same effects like we talked about. Like I said, this will be static across every card now that we have one in front of us, but they are 8 cost, give you 4 victory points, and the first effect on every relic is to dust 1 card from your hand. The chronograph, though, will let you recall a card from your discard pile. And again, look at these cards in terms of how they can fuel a strategy, because every turn you're getting this effect. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you can use, unless the relic states otherwise, can you use their effect at any point in your turn?
No, this is always the very first thing, right?
The dusting is the first thing that you do.
Oh yeah. Like if you have a relic in play, you have to dust immediately.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe you should consult the rules really quick if you have them up for an order.
Okay.
just to be
Okay,
100%.
yep. So yep, turn order. First one, relic phase. If you have 1 or more relics, activate each of your relics effects in whatever order you choose. That's worth noting as well, where there's something worth noting as well. So yeah, it would be dust 1 card and then recall a pile immediately. Or recard a call. Oh my god. Recall a card from your discard pile.
You got there. You got there, guys. So to speak to this card, probably not as powerful as I think some of the other ones are. In terms of ranking, this is probably right in the middle of the pack with all of them. Recalling a card from your discard pile is neat because, we've talked about in some earlier videos, your discard pile is essentially your deck. If you haven't shuffled it back together yet, you should have a lot of, good, useful things in there that you can grab back and play from. But if the relic phase being your very initial turn phase, and this is why, I'm glad you got that rulebook in front of you. If you don't have anything in your discard pile, this is just kind of a -1 in the beginning of your turn. So playing around a discard strat is really one of the big reasons to grab this, but I think overall underwhelming in terms of what some of the other ones do.
Yeah, we mentioned a bit in the colony review in particular, there are cards that punish other players for having a discard pile at the end of their turn. But on the other side of that coin, if you have the chronograph, you're less punished for having a discard pile. At least you get something out of it. It's not bad at all. It can help you out even if you're getting other cards attacked and dusted. But yeah, there are definitely turns where like you'll accidentally just have too good of a turn and cycle through your deck, and you won't have a discard pile, and you're like, oh, my chronograph does nothing, but like I couldn't not draw cards because I needed to do stuff. So mixed bag, but potentially very powerful.
Yeah. So we will move on to the next.
Wow.
Well, did you have a final thought there, Morgan?
Yeah, actually.
Sorry.
I sort of disagree that it's not that powerful. I think recall is a pretty underrated ability in the context of this game. The game being dust to dust. Obviously, the dust is a big place of interaction, but manipulating your discard pile is not an ability that you get to see very often, and it's really useful, I think, for manipulating attacks made against you by your opponent. You can discard a card that maybe you're going to see again because of the chronograph, so you don't care that Dome City Militia made you discard a card this turn. It doesn't matter. I think the upsides of the card far, far outweigh any sort of potential downside of maybe not having a discard pile for a turn.
Yeah, that's true. And you're not always being attacked. And even if you are being attacked, they're not going to take your entire discard pile usually.
Like the recall keyword, I think, was actually nerfed by Spencer a little bit, just because of how valuable it is to manipulate your discard pile.
Yeah. And to follow up with that too, it's I wasn't saying that it's necessarily a bad effect so much as it is just your discard pile getting shuffled back into your deck. If that happens the turn, at the end of your turn when you end your turn, I feel like I just said that 3 times in a row. But when you go back around, you don't have a discard pile to pull from. So if the chronograph was your first relic and that's the one that you took versus something else, it might just be a dead ability depending on how well you're cycling through your deck. So I think what I should have probably said better is that you just need to be smart with how you're manipulating your hand and how you're setting up your graveyard and your following turns if you're going to play around the chronograph.
And you'll find that's true, I think, across a lot of these relics, right? Like, just as a not to keep harping on this one in particular, but a lot of these relics, they have effects that are pertinent at certain points of the game. There's one, I forget which one it is, but it blocks the first attack made against you each turn. If your opponent's not making any attacks, oh well,
Right.
you're just dusting a
Mhm.
card. So I do think the chronograph ranks among the more powerful relics for sure.
And you have the element of
It's-
choice. Like if you have a deck
yeah,
with tons of card draw and you're cycling away from a discard pile every turn, maybe don't take it. Maybe take the other one. But if your deck doesn't have a ton of card draw and you think you have a discard more often than not, take it. It's probably really good.
yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So if we are good to go, let us move on to the next one.
Do it.
Let's do it. I think I'm introducing this. The Founder's Ring, like all of the relics, so I'm not going to mention it after this one. It costs 8, gives you 4 victory points, and makes you dust a card at the start of your turn from your hand. This one increases your starting hand size to 6 cards. So as we probably know, if you've seen the rulebook, your starting hand size is what you draw to at the end of your turn. So you've done all your actions, you've used all your cards, the rest of your hand goes to the discard pile, and you're drawing up to 6 cards, shuffling your discard pile back into your deck if you can't draw up to your hand size, which is now up from 5, it's to 6. So yeah, just a card advantage, assuming your deck has more than 5 cards, which you really, really hope it does. This will allow you to start with an additional card, gives your deck that much more consistency to see the cards you want to be seeing on a given turn, and it's just generally good, right? Like your opponent attacks your hand, it's not going to be as damaging. Yeah, and it of course offsets the dusting that you'll be doing when your turn starts again.
Yeah. And yeah, it's you hit every point right on the head. I don't have much to add here, just except for the fact that, like you said, it's just playing around, especially on a table of 4, where in most games you're probably going to have a few attacks fly over the course of your next 3 opponents' turns. Just having that 6 card can really play into at least being able to hold on to a strategy that you're trying to piece together when it gets back around to your turn. So Founder's Ring can give you that little edge um, when you need it.
Yeah, this is a probably a top 3 relic for me personally. It's sort of a zero downside one, right? We talked a little bit with the last one about if you don't have a discard pile, you don't get any benefit from it. You're getting a benefit from the Founder's Ring every single turn because you're always going to draw up to that fresh hand, and it's always going to be 6. So this is, if it's on the table, it's kind of a like no brainer. Go for the Founder's Ring. It's a goodie.
All right, we will get into the next one here.
All right. So next up we have the Gate Key. Usual relic things. Um, it's worth noting that the Gate Key is worth an energy. So at the start of your turn, you get an energy, which is neat. And the first ally you play each turn is efficient. So kind of an absurd relic. Definitely
Yeah.
super, super strong. Um,
Was this the one that was
efficiency.
buffed? Did it used to not have 1 energy?
I think it was, yeah.
Because I'm
Given
looking
an
at it
energy
now,
as
I'm
part
like,
of the
why did it
buff.
need to be buffed? This is really good effect.
Yeah.
But I guess at a certain point it did.
Um, I think it's the only relic that actually generates energy as well. I could
Yeah, I
be
looked too.
wrong.
I was scrolling.
Oh no, there's others.
No,
Okay.
there's a few others. Yeah,
Yeah.
one
Um,
other, but yeah.
yeah, because I know there's one that generates energy like as part of its effect, but as just like a static, sort of like the other ally cards.
Mhm.
There's only I think 1 or 2 of these relics that actually generate an energy in addition to their other effect. But I mean, efficiency, that's the name of the game. That's how you survive in the dust. You got to be efficient. You got to be quick. You got to be ruthless. Get it
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, we mentioned it in our Machina review how a lot of very combo-centric cards exist in that Machina set. This card basically gives you that ability without needing to necessarily lean on a lot of those Machina strats, if you will. But yeah, you're right. I looked at, like I said, we've seen iterations of this card, and I think that's just an overarching disclaimer for a lot of these, is that these cards may go through a few changes, minor, nothing crazy, but like this one having an energy now, whereas it doesn't on the actual Kickstarter page. So not entirely sure which version of it we'll get, but yes, having that energy and then also letting you keep an efficient creature seems pretty freaking powerful. So.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 1 energy in the late game, but yeah, this card is really good. It has the Dome City generator effect from our last Machina review. So I guess the only time this card is really not good, potentially useless, is if you actually have a Dome City generator in play, because you're getting the same effects and only works on the first ally. So I mean, just don't do that. Just do anything else at that point. But yeah,
interesting idea. Yeah.
yeah. But besides exactly that situation, as we talked about with the generator, which is why the generator is good, getting the first ally every turn efficient is really good, unless you only have one thing to play a turn, which is probably not great anyway.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more. I guess maybe offline about that, but that's super neat. If Dome City is in the pool and Gate Key's an option, like what a neat way to just have to avoid having to grab those cards and just give you that consistent ability for an energy. It's and again, relics can't be messed with. So once it's on the board, it's on the board. You're getting that energy every turn, and your first ally is efficient every turn. Like that's just that's yeah, can't say it enough. It's just it seems really, really, really powerful. But I guess that'll take us to our next one, the MACHWINGS. So again, same relic stuff, but this card allows you to retrieve one card of a different name from the dust. So this is one, and I guess speaking of how we're not mentioning that they're 8 cost 4 victory points, all that. This is one where it does need to be noted that you dusting one card from your hand with this card's effect is pertaining to the next line where it says you may retrieve a card of a different name from your dust. So whatever card you dust from your hand that turn, if it's an energy cell, means you cannot grab an energy cell from the dust pile. If it's an ally, you cannot just re-grab that ally from the dust. If there's nothing in the dust, that's where MACHWINGS just kind of falls short, which is a rarity, but again, it has that potential to happen. This is the one we played around with in our first physical playtest session, Gorby, if you remember that one. Yeah. So just neat little strategies there, and you can grab stuff to kind of fuel other strategies. And again, can't say it enough. Relics can't be messed with. So once this is on the board, it's just something to all of the other players now have to manage the dust pile accordingly to make sure that whatever strategies you're kind of gearing towards, you're not necessarily able to play from. So, but being able to grab fusion fragments for energy cells versus just dusting the card from your hand every turn that you would do early is I think what fueled me to actually being able to win that first playtest session. So MACHWINGS real powerful if left unchecked. So
yeah, the number of times I dusted a card and immediately got it right back is high, and also probably the reason that clause exists on the card now, because it's like, I'll just get it right back. It was like, okay, it doesn't really do anything. Yep, I got nothing else to add. It's still really good. Dust is, retrieval is really strong, but you can't just cheat the system anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's important with a lot of these cards that especially ones that help mitigate the inherent minus of having to dust a card every turn, that you need to have some sort of like clarification as to why this isn't just a free step towards winning the game, right? Like you want to dust a card from your hand. If you just get it back for free, there's no consequences. So that puts MACHWINGS like way up here as as value is concerned for relics. It doesn't happen often that you're dusting a card and can't get one back. It does come up, but the upsides I think far outweigh any potential downside with this card, because the dust is such a relevant part of the game. You're going to be dusting things just as an action during your turn anyway. So there's almost always going to be something there for you to take or reclaim, or maybe you made your opponent dust something with an attack last turn and I get it back now. So
I think that you just used a term that I wish we had been using prior, because I told Spencer one of the things I was going to try to do is use all of his lore words that he just kind of sprinkles in, but reclaiming a card from the dust is, I think, the actual proper terminology for when you are the word take is the basic way of saying that, versus reclaim is the way that it states it in all of the other all of the media property. So just shout outs to words.
Shout outs to words indeed.
All right, who's next?
I think I'm doing it. All right, we got the METALTREE. So normal relic stuff, 8 cost, 4 victory points, dust a card, gain an energy for each relic you have. And that's every single turn, which is nice. So this is like a really good second relic to buy. First, I think I've never taken it, because on average, like the other card, like a lot of the other relics we've seen give you a card in some sort of fashion to make up for the dust. on average, you'd rather have an extra card than one extra energy because the card is probably worth an energy, even if it's just an energy, and most cards do more stuff than just that. But then once you already have a relic and you're looking for your second relic, this becomes really appealing because 2 energy a turn is, hey, it's twice as good, right? That's a lot of energy every turn. So yeah, unlike most of the other relics, it does not like make up for the card advantage you're losing by dusting in a card, but it does give you more purchasing power. So yeah, obviously if you buy it, third doesn't do anything because the game is ending. First, it's a little underwhelming, but second, it's really good. That's where you want to hit this card, I think.
And I think this takes us back to the gate key. I have a distinct feeling that the gate key is probably going to lose its energy there, because gate key just seems like a way better version of this card, maybe, unless in that specific opportunity, like you mentioned, where this is the second relic you're grabbing. But I'm interested to see if the gate key holds on to its energy because this relic exists. I'm interested to see what those lines look like.
I think Spencer knows that this is bad first. I think that's just like a fun little, thing. Like if you have this versus gate key in your first buy, it's always gate key. But if it's the second buy, it's like, I got to think about it.
Yeah, for sure. Gorby, thoughts on this before we move forward?
I think you guys nailed this one, man. I mean, the particularly buying it second. This is kind of a feel bad first relic purchase. So if you can, make it your number 2.
Yeah. All right. Take us to the next one.
Yeah. Up next, and I just briefly before I go into the NOBLECLOAK here, I did just look at the Kickstarter. You can't quite tell if the gate key and the NOBLECLOAK both have energy on them. The gate key, it looks like it does not. The NOBLECLOAK, I can't really tell.
Carl will have to ask and edit it in.
Yeah. Again, these are, the images we're showing you are not final by any stretch. They are subject to change. Not drastic change, but some change. So the NOBLECLOAK, increase your minimum hand size to 4 cards. Not as, much of a standout as something like the Founder's Ring that lets you, increase your starting hand size. This is definitely a more defensive relic. If you're playing maybe a colony heavy match and your hand's just getting eaten alive by Dome City militias and poison hand shoguns. The NOBLECLOAK will help sort of mitigate that by letting you draw back up to 4 instead of 3. But other than that, it's a decent pickup. Not something you should really prioritize, I think, when it's on the table, unless you're just getting hammered from all sides by your opponents.
Yeah, I think some of the more feel bad openings are when you shuffle up your relics and you see the METALTREE and the NOBLECLOAK as your 1 and 2 pick. Early on, I think those two being probably the weakest of the bunch, especially early. But yeah, you nailed it. This is very much relevant to the pool that you're playing with. And if there's not a lot of really attack heavy cards in the pool, NOBLECLOAK becomes just not typically the cards you want to grab. You're going to almost always be pulling from the other pile, depending. So, yeah, it's just relevant based on board states. So,
yeah, I mean, it is strictly better than METALTREE first because it has an energy anyway, and it's like potentially
yeah,
upside.
if it provides that energy, yeah, and I think that's what. But I
Yeah.
don't believe it does. I wish I had the physical.
Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm just wrong. If it doesn't, then yeah, I would take it first. But yeah, like
According to this picture, it does, but I don't think it does.
All right, Founder's Ring, like you get up to 6, but then if you are getting attacked from all sides, you could still easily begin your turn with 3 cards, and then have to dust 1 because you have the Founder's Ring. With this card, at least, like basically you only start with 5, but only the first attack that is like leveraged against you on your hand is gonna do something. Like after that, you're just hard stuck at 4, which is great. Then you dust down to 3, and you're like, okay, it wasn't that bad. So I really like this card just because like the only feel bad turns in this game that really happen are when your opponents just nail your hand, and then you just can't find the pieces. So yeah, it's a really good hedge against that. So I like it
for sure. All right, takes us to ORDERHELM. So again, same relic stuff, but this one lets you when you acquire this relic, and I really like this card, and I want to give a nod to a Duel Masters card for those of you who watch and are still like part of Duel Masters. But when you acquire this relic, you may recruit any number of allies that have a total combined cost of 7 or less. I don't know why I just get the feeling every time I pick this card up, it makes me feel like Apocalypse Spice. where I'm just like sniping a bunch of things on the field all at once, and we're doing a little bit of math.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to pick up cards with a combined cost of 7 or less is just super neat. I like the 7 here because again, as you've seen in the prior faction videos, all the cards cost between 2 and 6. So 6 being the most expensive ally that you can pick up. So if you want a 6 drop, you can't get anything else. ORDERHELM just basically says, hey, grab one of the more powerful allies on the board, or you start having to play those math games of if I grab a 5, I can also grab a 2, but do I want the 2? If I grab a 4, I can grab a 3. And I think the neat idea of the number 7 here and the way that they've just kind of worked this game's mechanics is that you can't ever grab more than just 2 cards, or at least high value that way. You can grab 2 2s and a 3, but that's about the extent of it. So.
Yeah, I don't remember what the number was in early testing, but it was higher and it was too good. Gorby, do you have any idea?
I want to say it was 8, so you were guaranteeing yourself 2 cards by acquiring the ORDERHELM. But yeah, I think 7 is definitely the correct number for this card. And again, it is important to note it says allies. So if you got that 6 drop, you're not grabbing any energy cells. So just leave those on the table.
Yeah, the reason for that was that's the highest possible victory points you could get. So ORDERHELM as a third, ORDERHELM's actually one of maybe just the only relic that you care about getting third, because it actually adds more than 4 victory points potentially. You get 4 from this, and there are allies that have victory points. So even though you can't get fusion fragments, you can actually get like 5, or if you get a 6 that's worth 2, this could be worth 6 victory points, which is a pretty huge swing. And none of the other relics give you more than 4.
That's a really good call out. Yeah, after the thing I said at the beginning about how the third relic doesn't matter. No, this one matters a lot.
It's only this one, yeah.
Wow.
Well, and again, like we sort of touched on in the beginning, like the relics are sort of designed to be good in fringe cases. They're exceptionally powerful cards under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the whole point, right?
Yeah, and this card as a first relic too, this is a very interesting relic in as far as timing, because like you do kind of want it first because it'll give you a 6 drop or like a 4 and a 3 or something. It'll really start filling out your deck, but the power level of it goes like whoop, and then whoo, it's like really bad after that, because after that it does nothing. It just sits there making you dust. So like you really have to make sure you're getting your value out of those free recruitments. I did a thing with my hand that you couldn't see when I did those sound effects.
Well, I mean, I might even argue that it maybe dips a little bit in the mid game, but it's still good, right? Like, this is a good way to not only kick off a strategy or to finalize the end of the game, but it's a good way to flesh out sort of the middle.
Oh no, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I just meant like the turn after you buy it, whenever that is, it now it does nothing.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood what you were saying then. Okay, yeah. After that, the no static effect.
Yep.
Sorry, man.
Oh,
so
well.
make that recruit count.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, and just to give it a nod right now, this is probably my favorite relic. I like it. I like the idea of it. I like the throwback to making me feel nostalgic over cards that Spencer probably wasn't even thinking of when he put this card together. It's just I like this card a lot.
I don't remember if you introduced that one, so I don't know if it's my job.
I think it's your job. You're
okay.
up.
I'm doing this while recording timestamps. The overclock, normal relic things, gain a second ally action each turn. So if you're new, you might be wondering, how is this different from giving your first ally efficient? Well, I'll tell you how. If you have one of those cards and your first ally is already efficient, it does nothing. The effect fizzles. It doesn't say give your first non-efficient ally efficient. So this card is really cool because your first ally can still be efficient. You can draw into 2 allies that don't have efficient, and you can still play them both. It gives you a lot of flexibility throughout your turn. This is one of my favorite relics, as long as I have a lot of really good stuff in my deck that doesn't have efficient, because it just means I can play a bunch of stuff, and that's awesome. It doesn't give you any inherent card advantage, like you're not recalling or drawing or anything at the start of your turn, but being able to play 2 allies, like, really, really strong. So like as your first relic, maybe it's not great because you won't have that much stuff. You won't have that many huge turns, but if you get to the late game, it's like, oh, so good. Big fan.
Yeah, and I think this is probably a good card to now mention, and I don't know how it took us this long to kind of get there, and I guess it's because we're talking about relics now, but, when I talk about early, mid, and late game, like early game is before you have relics. that mid to late is where you're getting, or that mid game is where you're getting your first relic, and a lot of the players on the board are obtaining their first relic or have the ability to start getting it. And then the late game is that second relic where we're now all on crunch time. Is the person with the second relic, are they going to be able to get their third? And I think that's a good way to kind of talk about the different states of the game. And like you mentioned, overclock is just so incredibly powerful in that mid to late game, where once it becomes kind of your first, and especially if it becomes your second relic, this thing is just fueling strategies where you've got big buys throughout up until then, and now you're just playing those cards for free based on how you're cycling through the deck. So this is just another one of those cards that can really just take a strategy and just send it to the moon in terms of absurdity. So
Yeah, I like to think of this relic sort of as like a closer, in comparison to the other ones. The other ones sort of, a lot of them will let you either like continue to build on an existing strategy or protect you from your opponent's strategy. But the overclock is like, all right, we're gunning for the finish now. A lot of your allies are probably already going to be efficient, so you can really capitalize on the ones that don't have it, or maybe you don't have allies that give other ones efficient. The overclock will just let you continue to sort of like hammer through those boundaries and say, all right, we're done with the mid game. It's time to finish.
Well, I think especially with that big boundary being that you're dusting, especially if it's your second, you're dusting 2 cards, so you can
Yeah.
just dust those smaller efficient allies that were going to get you to those bigger ones anyways, and your goal is just to hold on to your 2 big beef boys
Yep.
and just play them.
Play the
So,
beef.
just play the beef, man.
The overclock, brought to you by Wendy's.
Well,
They
gotta
have
edit
the
that out.
beef. Yeah. Let them claim me. I don't think that I've monetized a video in years. Yeah.
Aww.
Take us to
We're on number
take
9
us to the
now.
moon, Gorby.
Speaking of moons, you guys ever seen a satellite? That's number 9, or relic number 9. Block the first attack that would harm you each round. So a really, really cool relic. If you have shields up, now you don't really necessarily have to worry as much about whether or not you want to sacrifice that shield to protect you from an attack. Uh, so you have maybe like a barrel horn rhino out and you're getting that 2 free energy every turn. And somebody hits you with the Dome City Militia. It's like, well, I don't really want to discard. Oh, wait, I have the satellite. It doesn't matter. So now I get my 2 free energy. My shields are still up. Throw another attack at me. I can keep taking it.
I'd like to think that you just purposely forget about your satellite every turn until someone does something, just so you can go, oh wait,
Right?
like no one else didn't see it on the board already.
It's not something you advertise to your opponents. If they forget, that's on them. Just saying.
Exactly. So yeah, it's sort of like a deterrent a bit. Sharper opponents will see, oh, he's got the satellite, maybe not worth throwing this attack at him. Or maybe they're just going to try to bulldog through. That's also an option. Maybe they have a hand full of 3 or 4 attackers, and maybe it's like a camo cloak sniper, and a couple other guys maybe that have efficient mock boot chaser, and you can just keep following those up. So you might be able to bulldog through it, but odds are most opponents aren't really going to try. So this is sort of just a great deterrent and a great way to ensure that your shields keep getting value throughout their life as a shield.
Yeah, it's one of my top 3 favorites. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's definitely one of my top 3 favorite relics because stop messing with me. Let me do my own thing. I don't want you to attack me. It's really annoying. Just stop it. So if I have the satellite, yeah, at least it stops a little bit of it. Yeah, I've taken this first a lot. Yeah, I can dish it, but I can't take it.
I was going to ask that question is where do you guys think this is more powerful as your first relic? Is this like pick one, pack one, depending on what's available on the board, or is this
it's
more powerful second, depending on, and obviously it all depends on the pool, but where have you found this more effective?
It's almost definitely better second, but I will take it first almost every time so no one else takes it because it's not going to wheel back around, right? Like I just want it. So just because I know it's going to be so valuable late in the game, I'll usually take it pretty quick. Just because I'm the kind of, I just don't want to be attacked. Leave me alone. But you don't have to take it first. Just saying, let me take it.
Yeah, I mean, I might argue that it's it's good at both points in the game when you're buying your first or your second. obviously when we hit the second, we're closer to the mid to the end of the game. So the attacks are going to be more powerful. They might be coming with more frequency, so the satellite gets more value. But it's also a good way to ensure that, if your opponents are buying early disruption, that your setup isn't going to get disturbed as much. So it's pretty much good anywhere except third. And even third, maybe. Like if your opponent wants to dust away things that are worth victory points.
Oh, yeah, this is legitimately the only other one that's actually good third. You're totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even though you're done your final turn, you still have a hand, you still have a discard pile potentially, and attacks can still affect you. And there could be people dust cards and then steal them from the dust pile, and all of a sudden they're like making huge victory point swings.
And maybe they get enough points to buy another relic and a fusion fragment, and you're just like, oh, it's a 6-point swing. What are we doing here? So
Yeah,
shout out
neat.
to the satellite.
Yeah, no, heck of an observation. God, I almost saw me struggle with that one for a minute. But yeah, no, that's
Hey
super
man, it
cool.
can't be
I
as bad as
like
my
it.
earlier one.
It's pretty rough. Um, but no, it's just cards that are cool being a third buy on a relic. Yeah, no, the satellite that adds a ton of value to me. So yeah, changed my mind. You've done it. Yeah, awesome. All right,
Strategies.
takes us to our very last relic though, the Scry Sword. Um, Same deal. All the same effects. We keep saying it. But this card lets you look at the top card of your deck. You may dust or discard it, and then draw a card. So, neat ability here. Again, super dead. That's your third buy. But the ability to look at the top card of the deck, see if it's something relevant to whatever strategy you're trying to put together, or depending on how the attacks have swung your way. Just being able to draw that card and know what you're going to get before you get it. And maybe even fueling a dust strategy with this too is super neat. It just kind of plays to that because you can dust or discard it and then draw. So it plays into a few different strategies. And I think the guy who, what was the word you used in another video, Gorby? The guy who knows kind of who can see their turn and play it correctly.
Sequencing.
But this card is one of those ones that rewards, just kind of that higher mindset of just, I know what I'm trying to accomplish here, and I'm going to try to either draw into it or, get to it. So neat card.
Yeah, I don't know that
Christian
it always
thoughts?
let you choose to dust or discard, but the fact that it does let you choose to dust or discard is really strong, really flexible. Because like if I see an energy at the top of my deck, I don't want to just discard it. I probably don't even want it in my deck after relics start getting bought. So yeah, really, really strong. And of course, you're at the end of the day, you're drawing a card where before you weren't. So that's offsetting the dusting in a way that gives you a lot of control as a player. And that's a really good thing to have when you're basically the whole game is aiming for efficiency. So being able to have some sort of level of control over your draws is really good. Also, most annoying thing in this game ever to do on Tabletop Simulator.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. That was a colossal pain in the ass.
Every turn was like 5 minutes. I think I'd like pass this card up just because I didn't want to mess with all the buttons. It's too much work.
Dorby, final thoughts on this before we wrap on relics?
I think you guys nailed it. This is again another way to sort of mitigate the downside of having to dust a card every turn. Scry Sword is strong at basically every point. So if it's on the pile, go for it.
Yeah. I think what I'd like to do, and I think what you and I should maybe focus on, and maybe Christian, if he can get down here for some play testing at some point. But I'd like to rank these, and I think that'd be a neat idea just to see kind of what's more powerful. And I think play testing is definitely a part of that. But standouts for me are cards like ORDERHELM, Scry Sword, Satellite. Now I think that definitely fits into the top three somewhere. But yeah, those are the standouts for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm not as great with the names. I'm gonna say, give me a minute.
Oh, Overclock too. That's another one. Yeah.
That's 4 though. See, it's really hard to rank them. They all have use.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure at some point I've taken all of these. Some of them used to be pretty overwhelming, but the ones that were overwhelming have maybe or maybe not been buffed with an energy. So like, we'll wait to see. But yeah, I need to play with more of them for sure. I know I like Satellite. I know I like pretty much everything that gives you an extra card in some way or form is like it's gonna be good, right? Like it's not not going to be bad pretty much ever. It's just varying levels of goodness and situational goodness.
I think that's the idea of this game, though, right? Is that
Yeah.
all of these cards are good to some degree? Like, there's no such thing as a necessarily bad card.
Yeah, they're just cards that you want less sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that got brought up a lot in testing. It's like, well, I felt this card was really underwhelming. It's like, well, I mean, in this pool, that card maybe didn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's try it again with a different set of 10. So,
There's 3 million combinations, right?
exactly.
We'll find one that works.
But as far as standout relics for me, I mean, for sure, the Founder's Ring is probably my top. Just that extra starting card is invaluable, especially once you're starting to hit that 2 dust a turn. Ensuring that you can start with 4 cards a turn rather than 3 makes a huge difference. Scry Sword, super great. And then probably somewhere between the Overclock and the Satellite for me as far as number 3.
Nice. Nice. Well, I think that takes us to the end, boys. We have now officially reviewed all of the cards in Dust to Dust. With
Did
the
we review
exception,
energy cells and fusion fragments?
you beat me
Great.
to it. I was about to say, with the exception of those two, but pretty straightforward, man. We can put them up here. Fusion fragments. They provide 2 victory points. They cost 4. And energy cells. They cost 1. They provide 1. There we go. We did it. All right. So
Hooray!
that's all 42 cards in the Dust to Dust meta, if you will, barring any future expansion packs, which I think would be super neat if we ever if we get there. So, yeah, guys, let us know what you think. Leave a like, leave a comment down below. Talk to us. What are your favorite cards? I wish so much, and I really hope you guys are backing this on Kickstarter because I'm very excited to, especially when we get into fall time around the holidays, actually maybe revisit this and continue to create content for it so we can actually talk about like strategies, what's been working for you, what's been neat, what cool things have happened. But we're excited to bring quite a bit of that to you here over the course of the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be getting with Gorby here in the next couple of days. Over the course of this weekend, and we're gonna record some battle series with them, and yeah, just play this game and see how it feels, and try to find ways to break it. I guess is the overall goal. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean that was Spencer's intent from game one. I think the first playtesting session we had, he was just like, do as much cool stuff as you can think of with these cards, and let's just make things happen. Um, God, I had something I was going to say. Oh, the Kickstarter. I think they're closing in on 13 grand as of the time of this recording. So I mean, there's that final push, man. Let's get that last 7. Let's get this game out and in the hands of you guys, so you can have as much fun as we've been having just play testing this game. I want so badly to see this game in a final product on nice cardstock, sleeve it up so you can protect all of Bonnie John's hard work. Yeah, that's it.
Christian, take us home.
Yeah, check out the Kickstarter. If you like the looks of this game at all, it's still up for a couple weeks. And it's been great to be part of these reviews. Hopefully I can make it down sometime in the next month and actually play some. It's been a while. I'm itching.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm excited to get I'm just excited to have, more people at the table. It's so weird, like I said, coming from a TCG background where it's just always been 1v1. Playing a game with 4 people and it feeling as clean as it should with 4 people. You play games with 4 people that weren't intended for 4. It was more intended as a 1v1, and they just always feel clunky and weird. This game feels so much better when you have more people to play it with. So really excited to be getting into a little bit of that here in the next coming weeks, and yeah, take it from there. So like I said, leave a like, leave a comment down below, let us know what you think, and until next time, it's been fun. So thanks guys for recording these with me.
Of course,
See you guys
man.
next time.
Anytime. Later.
See ya.